Alright, so the project I'm going to be working on today is this Mikuni carburetor. This came off of my Yamaha Warrior 350, and the reason why I pulled it off was it was on there when I got it and the thing never ran right with it on. So I tried to put a rebuild kit in it, but afterwards it just never really ran right. So I wound up putting an aftermarket carb on there, but even with that, it's not running right with that either. Different issues both times, and I know they're both carb issues. But I'd much rather have this Mikuni carburetor on there. See, this is the genuine one. And so I'd like to get this thing all cleaned up and installed on that machine. So I actually have an ultrasonic cleaner now, which I did not before. So what I'm going to do is try and take this all apart and take off all the covers here, just so that we can try and clean this out a little better with the ultrasonic cleaner, and then see if we can get the quad to run any better with this on the machine. So first what I'm going to do is just go ahead and take all these covers off. First start with the fuel bowl. Pull all these off. I've had these open so many times now. I've had this thing open so many times now. It's got a fresh rebuild kit in it, and it was a good rebuild kit. All the reviews seemed like it was good, and everything seemed to be right with it. It has the same OEM jet size, but after I cleaned this up and tried to put it in before, the last time I tried to put it in, I couldn't get to sputter at all. So I don't know if it just wasn't getting fuel, but the bowl was full of fuel. But I was just kind of done with it at that point and wound up buying a new carburetor for it. It still runs. It runs pretty good, but it's when it's cold, it doesn't really idle, and it's not. So I just want to throw this carb on there. Alright, so you can see inside the bowl there. It's not too bad. It's a little bit dirty, but nothing crazy. This is everything, like everything in there is pretty clean. I'm missing that little plate that goes on the bottom of the jet there, but all that does is prevent anything from sloshing around, and it should run fine without that. And get something to pull that off. We got to pull that jet out of there. All these jets I'm going to pull out. I'm also going to pull this cover off. This is the cover for the throttle cable. Yeah, and all these carburetors for the different years of the Warriors, they were a little bit different. This one came off a 1995 Yamaha Warrior 350. So this one only has one vent. I believe the best Mikuni to have on a Yamaha Warrior 350, I'm not sure of the number, but the best year to have, the best year with the best carburetor was I believe it was the 1997. And the reason why that one was so great was because it had two vents instead of just one, like this one for the top of it. So if you are looking at getting a new carburetor for yours or a used one, try and find one with two vents on top. Those ones I've heard. I've never used it, but those are supposed to be the best. All right, so you can see here I have this floating around in there. That's to secure the throttle cable onto this piece here, which moves everything. And this whole setup is different from different years. I think the older ones had some weird design where it just went right through the top or something like that. But other than that, they're all pretty much the same. So this little plunger here, this is for your pilot jet. If I can get this out. Maybe we'll just leave that in there. Next, we're going to take off this cover here. And that is, I believe this is for the choke. There's a diaphragm under here. It's always good to use a good quality screwdriver on these too. See how those are kind of rounded out? A good quality screwdriver should still grip those pretty well. And if you use a good quality screwdriver all the time, they shouldn't round out at all. But unfortunately, that's not the case here. All right, so under there, you just have a little diaphragm. You should be able to just pull that right off. There we go. That should pull right out. Careful not to rip this. If it's ripped, you need to buy a new one. You can see in there. It's pretty clean in there. There's a little bit of stuff down there, but the ultrasonic cleaner should get that off. Here, remove this. That's all popped off of there. And the top of this thing here is the, we're going to remove this. And that gasket's brand new on there as well. That came in the rebuild kit. So now that that's off, I could go ahead and remove this slide here, but I don't think I'm going to go that far because I don't think that's not dirty at all. It's just the slide. What I'm worried about is the internal passages and stuff, and hopefully the ultrasonic cleaner cleans all those out a little bit better. So now I still have to take off this piece here. This is your this is the air-fuel ratio, your adjustment for your idle. So this goes all the way in and then 2 turns out when you're adjusting it. See that there? That comes in the rebuild kit as well. And then I gotta get a different screwdriver to get that jet out. Now that everything's removed from this carburetor, you can see all the way around, all the covers are off. Just going to go ahead and drop this in the ultrasonic cleaner here. This is the Harbor Freight ultrasonic cleaner. And you can see it goes almost all the way down, so I'll top this off with a little bit of extra water. I have the heat on, so that should help with the cleaning process. It's pretty warm in there. So now I'm just going to put the lid on there. See, it just fits. Set this to the longest time and then turn it on. And so I'll let this run a couple cycles. I'll flip it upside down to make sure it gets the other side of it too, and then it should be all clean. So I just got this thing out of the ultrasonic cleaner there. I'd say it did a pretty good job. Looks pretty clean all around. Didn't get all of this stuff off, but I had it cleaning in there for about an hour. And Simple Green is the solvent I was using there. And that stuff tends to eat through aluminum and all those softer metals, like the stuff that this carburetor is made out of. So I didn't want to leave it in there cleaning for too long. But I blew out all the passages, and all of those seem to be clean. It definitely cleaned it up a lot. But yeah, so this should be a lot better. I'm hoping that fixes everything. I'm going to go ahead and put this all back together. So this thing's almost all back together, but I wanted to talk about something else here. So these carbs on the Warriors, they have an accelerator pump, which what that is this little nozzle there squirts a bit of fuel in when you step on the gas, and that helps your acceleration out a lot. So that's a good thing they have on the Warrior, but the problem with that pump is they use this kind of spring. And the way this works is this plunger there. Let me show you. So this, if it's working correctly, this plunger will be up, just like so. And when you step on the gas, it gets pushed down. Now when that gets pushed down, it gets pushed into this fuel bowl here. And that gets pushed right into there. So once it gets pushed down into there, it should spring back up after you let off the throttle. Now what causes it to spring up is this spring here. So this is the one it comes with, but the problem with it is this oftentimes will get stuck in there. It'll get stuck in the down position, and if it's stuck in the down position, it won't pump. So that's not going down any further there. So then you lose a bunch of acceleration from that. So the cause of that problem is really just because the spring is not heavy enough. So this spring doesn't have a lot of tension. It's very weak. It's not springy at all. So what you can do to fix that is just take a spring out of a clicky pen, like a Bic pen. So if you look up online, this is what they call the Bic spring pen mod or whatever. But what you basically do is you just take this spring out and replace it with one from a Bic pen. You can see it fits in there just perfectly. So I'll reinstall this with this Bic pen spring, and that plunger shouldn't have any issues coming back up. What I'm going to do now is just uninstall this carburetor and then reinstall the other one. So in order to do that, we're going to turn the gas off, disconnect the fuel line, take both these nuts off. There's one on this side right here and then one on the other side. Then there's a clamp for this air intake, and then we're going to take that off. remove the throttle cable and slide the carb right off. I just got this thing all hooked back together. I swapped out the fuel line too. This is called Raider fuel line, and it's supposed to be good for the cold, and it's pretty cold outside now, and I'm going to be using this thing in a snowstorm, or riding it in a snowstorm tomorrow. So I put this stuff on so that won't crack or get damaged or whatever because of the cold. And then, so this carb, it runs great with this on it. It idles perfect. It starts right up. It's got full throttle, mid-range, and low. And yeah, there's no issues. I'll show you the other side, how everything mounts up. And then here, with these carbs, they have, mine's a 1995, so it's got only one vent on the top, like I was talking about earlier. So that's this guy here. So when you're putting it on, this is the line on the top where you're like, oh shoot, like I don't know what this thing goes to. No, it goes to nothing. I usually just run it down below the plastic here, because if gas comes out of there, I don't want it to hit my top end and catch on fire, so I usually just run it down there. And then this bottom tube is also an overflow. And another cool thing about this carb is if you need to drain it or winterize it or anything, you can just loosen this plug right there, and then all the fuel that's sitting in the bottom of the bowl will run out of this line. So I run it to the back of the quad there, just right in there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna do an oil change on it, but other than that, that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys like this quad, I have tons of other videos on it. I did a complete rebuild on this engine, and I have some other content on my channel as well. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.